Michelle, let's get to some of the reactions and questions we've been getting about your presentation. I've heard so many different presentations about screens over the last 1 year, and I was really wondering what we could bring differently to our parents and to our families this time. And I am so thrilled we invited you because I think you gave us such a different perspective, so many different things to think about, and some things, honestly, even which I had not thought about. So I think, one of the very first questions I would like to ask you is about play and, how you told us how important play is, and that actually helps the development of the brain for a young child and probably throughout life.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of young children, adolescents, and even younger children who are truly obsessed or obsessively play with video games.
Yes.
Now, but there are a lot of interesting, and I think the industry has caught on to that and they've brought in very interesting games, which are very, simulate play. But is there a difference between that play and the play that you were referring to? And could you tell us a little bit more about that?
It's a great question. And it's one actually I wish I'd had a bit more time to talk about because it is so important. Because play, I think we've used the word so much that we have lost what it actually means. So play is anything that's not work, for one. And if I'm working to win and the winning doesn't matter, it could still be play. But if I'm working to win and it matters, then I'm actually working, I'm not playing. If I'm competing and it matters, it's not play, it's work. And so we want to be I think that the kinds of games, and you're right, there are some games that are actually much more healthy in terms of they're not about working to an outcome. But if you're working for an outcome, you're working, you're not playing. If you are playing, it's engaging, it's often creative. And so there are some games that are creative. And some of the things on screens where kids can make, can develop, can create. Um, these things are more along the lines of play. It's when it's about the score and the top score and winning prizes. Um, we can also have children who are winning prizes and it just the whole reward center is going ding 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 ding, and like I said earlier, I think it we lose then the willingness. I don't really want to learn how to play soccer because like when I play online I do really awesome, but it's kind of tiring. And we kind of we have to look at play being something that children can enter into and out of freely, that there isn't any really working at something like this. It's also play is safe. So as soon as there's some shame in the playing with people, you'll know this experience of watching your children play together with something, and they're having a great time, and all of a sudden it seemed like everyone was having fun, and then all of a sudden something shifts, and it could be that suddenly something wasn't safe. Someone made what they thought was a joke, or they maybe meant as a joke, or maybe they actually meant it as a dig, but what seemed like play a minute ago suddenly isn't. So as soon as it isn't safe, it isn't play anymore. As soon as there's a sense of losing face or being humiliated or something, of course, that's not play. And yeah, so I think it's also that the kinds of games where they're sort of interactive, and we can play with ideas, or we can play with and actually I don't always have to win. If I'm playing with family members and sometimes I lose, and it, it can be quite helpful. I mean, there are definitely games that we can play that are digitized that are,
Mhm.
are helpful. But it's the creative. If it's coming from the inside and I'm expressing something out, that's a better indicator of something that's not bad screen time. If it's connecting with people, of course, as I
Right.
mentioned. Hmm.
So there's an important point you bring up, and tell me if I got that correct.
Hmm.
when play involves something coming from, using your own capabilities, your own creativity in that, and not having someone provide it to you already
Yes.
made and all packed up nicely. So there's an interesting question we've got from one of our viewers, which is related to play. And you spoke about how play it's not play when it's not safe, and if there's shame involved. And our viewer asks that there's a lot of pressure on kids to. It's about the culture that you spoke about, being like everyone else. So if everyone is playing computer games, your child is also pressured into that, and they don't feel accepted in their peer community if they are not part of that. So do you have any tips on that, any advice, any suggestions on how?
Sure. I mean, we do this with our children about other things, and I think it's important that we're willing to do it with this as well. Sometimes we have to say no. That doesn't work in our family. I mean, some things will work for you, and you're okay, and you don't mind them, playing a little bit of something that you think is junk food or whatever. But it's important for us to also be able to. There's something about the relationship with our children that can shield them from some of that nastiness, some of that shaming that their peers can do. If I can equip my children with such a good sense of, I know exactly who you are. You're an amazing kid. You're wonderful. We love you, not because you're good at this, not because you're good at that, just because you are. We love you. And so as parents, if we say, you know what, you're the sweetest kid. I think you are such a thoughtful kid. You're going to go places in the world. When you've said to your children in a heartfelt way, I see you, I value you, my opinion about you matters most. So when children then are out in those venues where other people will say, well, you're stupid, or what, I mean, whatever they've said, whatever cruelties are inflicted on our children, whatever pressure is placed on them, if they are equipped with a really strong connection with us as parents, it also shields them some from worrying about what other people think. Because if other people don't matter as much, then then the slights and the wounds and the injuries don't matter as much either. If my parents, my grandparents, the adults in my world say, I'm okay, this shields our children, and they can carry that shield with them when they go out and about in a wounded world.
Mhm. Those are such important points for parents to remember, right? We think as our children get older, they don't really need us, but they continually do need us.
They sure do.
Mhm. That question, by the way, was from Vicky Go. I'm sorry, I couldn't see the name, but
Thanks,
I
Vicky.
did
Good question.
We have another question, Michele, from Kathleen, and she asks, it's a very interesting question, and I completely share this question with Kathleen. What if I have a problem with my own screen consumption?
Yes, and you know what, Kathleen, brave soul for saying it, because a lot of the people watching this are thinking the same thing. What if I have a problem with, I don't know. Like I said, the screens are answering some of the problems that we have too. If I, as an adult, don't feel enough connection in my world, I might seek it elsewhere too. And it's like that sort of superficial, artificial. It's not really satisfying, but if I'm sitting by myself, I might feel like it fills me up a little bit with contact. Um, and so it might be, one of the things is to ask yourself the question, which of these things that screens are offering are the things that I'm actually needing in my real life? And it might be, this is where reconnect with some people who you've lost touch with. see if you can find some times in your week for screen-free time. You know, a lot of families develop these routines of, you know what, Friday night is family night and there's no screens, so everyone just take the phones and everything, and we'll just put them in a basket, and we won't pick them up until Saturday at dinner time or maybe Saturday morning. But at least providing some structure, because as a parent, even if we aren't taking the time, it's very hard for our children to model, you know, to follow our lead. And honestly, these things are, I mean, they have really good algorithms for how long even an adult will tolerate sitting still before they get up and get a drink of water. I notice when you're watching those sort of power, you know, watching video after video, now they give you very few seconds before the next one loads up, and that's because they have an algorithm that studied us. I mean, ah. there's a lot of vulnerability for all of us. It's just figuring out what do I need in my real world to fill it up, to fill me up.
Yeah,
Simple,
that's
not easy.
mhm, right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's such a that's such an important point you bring up, Michelle. You know, about what's missing in our own lives, and I think
yeah.
the pandemic hasn't helped that, and
Oh,
so
it sure hasn't.
it's just been easy to turn to the screen, right?
It has.
Um, well, you know, one of the things we've been indoors a lot, and I think one of the
Yeah.
questions is, what about detox as summer is coming, sunny days, and you know, as we come out of the pandemic, maybe that's a good uh, way to get away from the screens.
Absolutely. And I know that you have a speaker coming next week to talk about nature, which is fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that you'll have a whole another hour of talking with someone about the value of nature, because you know, if I think about the times that I have felt the least stress, the least alarmed, the most at ease, it's been the times that I'm out walking around in nature. If I'm out on a trail and you know, I'm not constantly having to stop and pause and concern myself with who's coming the other direction, and uh, if I'm able to get out in nature, someplace where I'm not around a bunch of people, there's incredible detox. I mean, we went camping in the summer, and I was on this little mini hike, and I said to my family members I was with, I said, you know what? For a second, I actually forgot we were in a pandemic. It's definitely, we need to have um, time outside, non-digital play, non-digital connecting. It's really important. And as we get opportunities to open some of those things up, by all means, I would be definitely spending some time in the outdoors with my kids this coming spring break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I think I wanted to ask you a question about, you know, how what maybe you can tell us a little bit about how children are, as they develop and their brains are also developing,
Yes.
we learn a lot from our surroundings. And like you said, you know, like being outside completely rejuvenates us, and
Mm-hmm.
we learn a lot about the world around us and how it
We
works.
do.
So my question is, when we are, you know, interacting with people on screens, and there's a lot of learning that happens which is not verbal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that means that as you speak to me, I can see you nodding your head,
Yes.
but there's a lot that your hands could be saying, or there's
Yeah.
something in the context. Could you tell us a little bit more about how we are missing out on that when we are on a digital screen?
Well, I mean, I think we probably all feel it too, you know. I I I find that the times when I just happen to bump into somebody and I see them three-dimensionally, I come home and I'm kind of excited about it. It just feels different. And so, you know, even as Vicky is saying, you know, come to the library, um, walking outside, um, when they allow us again to have at distance visits and such, I think there is an awful lot about three-dimensional contact that's so very different from the flat sort of video screen. Not only that, but I mean, as I was doing a little bit of poking about for this talk, I had no idea, but there's been a huge increase in nearsightedness. And I didn't know that, but apparently spending too much time on screens, especially if the screen is, I think they said closer than 22 inches. So like everything that we hold in our hands, um, our small screens that we're holding in our hands, that's not 22 inches away. But they said the the there's something about the digital that's actually having an effect on nearsightedness. And I thought, oh gosh, we don't need anything more that's going to be trouble about this. Um, but there's other things about getting out, getting around real people. I think it's just we feel we feel the immediate response, like you said, Sangeeta. Um, I say something and I hear or I see your response immediately. It's even more so when we're in person, which is why I think, they speculate when people are online, they can be meaner to each other. They don't see the reaction. They don't see the damage. They don't see what this is landing like for the person. Um, we're meant to be in person. And so it's not safe to be in person, and I understand the health orders and things, and I look forward, as I'm sure everybody else does, to the times when we can see each other three-dimensionally.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious that digital communication is not enough. That's why the whole,
Yeah.
the flourishing of emojis that we have now.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, actually, I should say there's another thing that if you have to connect with someone digitally, and maybe they don't have a video interface, because video is better than non-video. But if you were to choose from texting someone or phoning, phone. They've done studies where they had teenage children who were sort of highly alarmed, and they sort of threw some alarming, not real scenarios at them, but they didn't know it wasn't real. And half of them, they gave them the chance to text their mother, and half of them were given the chance to phone their mother. And the mothers were given a script about what to say. And after the children got the exact same messages back from their mothers, the one who had been on the phone, their stress hormones dropped. The ones who were on text stayed exactly the same. So if you got a choice, get on a phone.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
that's pretty powerful evidence.
it's remarkable, isn't it? Uh,
Hmm.
yeah. And anyway, yeah, you just miss too much. There's at least inflection when you're on a voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Michelle, I think we have time for just one more question. I think there are
All
so
right.
many questions going through my head itself. I think this has been such a lovely, informative session for us. You spoke about, how we learn from adults and how that unconditional love and comes from our family, our parents, our grandparents, our aunties and uncles, and
Hmm.
um, with that now kind of, it's not possible to meet in person.
Yeah.
So, do you have any ideas, or what parents could take home today as how they could create that into their structure, into their week, so that they build these connections with their children?
I think that's a really good word you use, the structure. Uh, When when we want to add something new into our family, if we want to add more connection into the family, it is really up to us. And the first time we try to introduce something new, we might get a bit of pushback. In fact, we might get a lot of pushback. And if we can hold firm, and because ultimately, um, we have the responsibility of growing our children to maturity. And so when we introduce something as a routine, not just a, hey guys, tonight we're going to play board games. If we said, you know what, Wednesdays are going to be board game night, then the following Wednesday it's easier because everyone knows, oh, it's Wednesday, we have to play board games. And the following week, it's Wednesday, we have to play board games. Eventually it just becomes, oh yeah, no, I'm not going over to your house. It's Wednesday, we have board games. You know, when it becomes part of the routine, it's far easier for us as parents to instill the values, to protect the space, to make it possible for us to have those connections. And so it's just how we do it here. I know that's not how your friends do it. That's okay. That's how we do it here. That's how it is. I wish you
Absolutely.
were like everybody else's parents. Yeah, I'm not. If I was you, I might be annoyed about that too, but I'm not. I love you. That's my job. No apologies.
Absolutely. Actually, one of our viewers today, Dubravka, says that, sometimes as parents, we shouldn't be scared of saying no when it's needed.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I mean, we get a reaction, and um, it, it's sometimes important, and you have to decide, when have I got the energy to deal with that reaction? So you don't say no and you're tired, and or you're in the middle of uh Safeway or something. You don't do that then. But yeah, sometimes we have to say no because some things don't work. It just doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, don't turn yourself into a pretzel to make it work. It just, some things don't work.
Absolutely. Um, can you give us some names of some of the, three books that you would recommend parents can read, or some resources that they can get from their local library? Any books that you would like to recommend?
Well, that's a great invitation. I've actually shared with Vicky from the Burnaby Library a list of some of the books that I do recommend. Certainly, a book that's really excellent for parents by a colleague, Deborah McNamara. She's a local author and fellow faculty member with the Newfield Institute, but she wrote this book, Rest, Play, Grow, which is really fantastic. It talks about how do we provide the rest for children from screens and all kinds of things, so that they play, and how does play actually influence their growth. Um, if your children are a little bit older, of course, Hold On to Your Kids is a good one. If you're an educator, Reclaiming Our Students. All of these are really talking about how do we foster relationship with the children so that we can do the job that we've always been responsible for, and we will still be responsible for even in a digital world. It's our job. We're their best answer. So finding books that help you to put yourself back in the driver's seat with your children, and feel confident about it, that there's lots and lots of science behind it. I think these are great books to start if you're reading for yourself. Otherwise, there's lots and lots, and I'm sure Vicky can help you find lots of stories of, um, you know, books that sort of foster children to feel their feelings and deal with no and all this kind of stuff. I'm sure there's fantastic resources at the library for that as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I wish we had some more time. There are lots of questions. But Michele, thank you so much for this really very helpful and informative session that you have shared with us today. It's been wonderful listening to you and having you with us today.
It's been a pleasure myself. I've really enjoyed working with you and the ladies in the background here as well. And um, thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thank you. You've reminded us of some very important things about connecting with our kids. So
Mhm.
thank you for that. So just as we wrap up today, I just want to remind all the viewers, all parents, caregivers, grandparents who are out there, that we will be here again next Thursday. That's March 18th, the same time, 6:30 p.m. And next week, we have a great follow-up actually to this conversation, and that's about nature, which is a playground for all children. And we have Jared Krenzel with us. He has been teaching about the importance of outdoor play for the healthy development of our children. And he has been doing this for over 20 years. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. And if parents want more details, please go to our website, which is bflgrosscommunity.org/PLE2021. Also, you can visit bpl.ca, as Vicky had shared. And thank you so much, everyone, for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you next week. And a big thank you to our funder, the Ministry of Children and Family Development, for making this happen. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.